Hello and welcome to Profiles and Issues, the cable television talk show that gives you in-depth interviews with prominent people in the news. I'm your host, Dennis Rudin. Our topic for this broadcast, Village Incorporation. Why are the residents of the town of Greenburgh so concerned about attempts by the hamlet of Edgemont to incorporate into a village government? What would be the economic consequences for the other villages and unincorporated areas in the town of Greenburgh and the surrounding areas in Westchester? Would it plunge the county into economic chaos? Now, let's get started. My guests for the broadcast are distinguished citizens who live in both the unincorporated and incorporated areas in the town of Greenburgh. These citizens have formed a political action group called Saving Greenburgh Coalition. Okay, let's get started. Whoever wants to take this question, feel free. Explain to our viewers what village incorporation means.
Village incorporation is a legal process of forming a governmental entity that will provide services to the people that live within their land area. Right now, the town of Greenburgh has 7 parts. There are 6 villages, the 4 river towns of Dobbs Ferry, Hastings, Irvington, and Tarrytown, and the 2 villages of Ardsley and Elmsford. The remainder of the town is considered unincorporated Greenburgh. If Edgemont incorporates, they will be the 7th village within the town of Greenburgh. They would be responsible for forming their own government, police department, fire, sanitation, school system, and providing any other services that the people in the town wish to have.
Okay, does anybody else want to add anything, or we'll move on? Okay, second question. Will the village incorporation of Edgemont only affect the unincorporated areas in Greenburgh? But before I get a response, I forgot to mention this. Throughout the program, you will be seeing numbers on the screen of public officials in your state government. Please get involved. The taxes you save may be your own. I know it sounds corny, but you know, this is a real issue, and it affects quality of life for all of us, for average citizens, etc. So please, we're going to be airing this information periodically throughout the show. Get a pencil, paper, pen, and write down who to get in touch with. You can contact us also, and get involved. That's the only way that we will be successful in this endeavor. Tom?
Dennis, in response to your question of who is going to be impacted if Edgemont is allowed to become a separate village, it'll have a very, very serious detrimental impact on the taxpayers of the unincorporated area. But it will have a regional impact, and it will affect all of the residents of the town of Greenburgh. The unincorporated area of the town of Greenburgh has services that are designed to help just the unincorporated area, paid for by the unincorporated area. And that's about half of the town and half of the taxpayers. If you take away a very wealthy part of town, about 25% of the taxes, you're going to be diminishing one of the largest police departments in the area, one of the largest sanitation departments in the area. You're going to be impeding the mutual response that the communities have among themselves. Right now, the villages often depend on the town of Greenburgh to back them up, or they back each other up, etc. But if there's a holdup in the middle of the night, what police departments have enough policemen out there to respond? That's why I, as a New York State Assemblyman, was so concerned about this, because I looked at the entire region and I said Greenburgh is an important piece of this. Secondly, the town of Greenburgh is unique. It's the only town in the entire state that has services dedicated only to the unincorporated area. Usually the towns have recreation, for example, town-wide, okay? But so if there were to be a separation of this 25% of the taxes, there's going to be a major impact, and there's going to be pressure to spread the tax burden on all of the villages, all of the residents of the town of Greenburgh, because the unincorporated area is not going to be able to support the services that they need to support. So this is an issue that impacts not just the people in the unincorporated area, not just the people in the villages, but the people who are in the entire area.
Okay, thank you. Now, you were talking about service. We've spoken about services. Can we identify specifically how real estate taxes would be affected? Jobs, housing, public schools, and businesses in the area?
Well, Greenburgh would be losing about $18 million that's
Wow.
pays to the town from Edgemont. So if that happens, it means that they either have to raise the taxes in the town of Greenburgh, or cut staff, cut services, and of course it also indirectly will impact our school, who is always struggling to get a budget together to run that school. As a member of the board for 20 years, that was always one of our problems. If people are forced to pay more taxes, school taxes are the only tax that the community has a chance to vote on. And if they're going to have to pay more school taxes, and you know that they're going to turn our budget down. Right now, our schools are in dire repair. It's going to be hard for them to pass budgets, and that will also have an impact on our education.
Also, I guess businesses that are looking to come into the area might not see that as a good move, right?
Absolutely, because nobody wants to pay more and more taxes, and as it is, taxes are very high, but we get excellent services
Right.
all across the board, and we enjoy it, and people don't mind paying a few more dollars. But if the burden is going to be shifted on one part of town, it's definitely going to be devastated.
Okay. Now, explain the process of village incorporation. How does it work? Which comes first? The petitions, the voting, who is allowed to vote? Can we go into that?
I'd be happy to answer
Sure.
that. Incorporation is basically a simple process. The area that wants to incorporate, some individual or group of individuals starts a petition. In order to form a village, you have to have at least 500 people that live in that area. And the requirement is that 20% of qualified voters have to sign the petition. Qualified voter is any U.S. citizen over the age of 18 who's not currently incarcerated. Once the petition is signed, it gets submitted to the town supervisor. The town supervisor reviews the petition to see if it meets the legal requirements, if it is sufficient. He has to schedule a hearing so that anyone who feels that the petition might not be sufficient has an opportunity to present their point of view. That hearing must be done within 30 days of filing. The hearing must be concluded within 10 days. The supervisor then has 10 days to decide, is this sufficient or not? So that initial step can take up to 50 days. Once the supervisor makes his determination, if someone's not happy with it, they can appeal to the courts. And that's where the delay can happen, because once something gets into the hands of the courts, we have no idea how long it will take. Once the court actually has a hearing, they have to make a decision within 20 days. If someone is not happy with that, they can of course appeal again. But once the final determination is made by the court, a vote has to be held within 15 to 25 days later. So the incorporation process, if uncontested, could take as few as 90 days. But if it is contested, it can drag on as long as the courts are still involved.
Anybody else want to
And
add?
who,
Bishop?
and with the question concerning who can vote, I think we have to really consider the aspect and the intent, in my opinion, of the law when it was written. It was written in a situation or when black people could not own any property, and it was written with the ideology of being separate but equal. And the law has really separated us. Who can vote now with the present law? are only those people that are in the geographical location that would like to incorporate. And if we do that with the present law in place, it take only 500 people to vote and pass a incorporation that affects 49,000 people with the town of Greenburgh. And that's, in my opinion, is discriminatory and racist in the bedroot of what the law, how the law is written. I think it's totally unfair, and I think the coalition agrees that the 500 people should not be able to vote for something that affects and have a financial, an economical, tax increase possibility on the other 49,000 people that are in the town of Greenburgh. If it's going to affect us, everybody should have the right to vote on anything that's going to affect, and therefore their law need to be changed. And we know that when we look at the Assembly and when we look at the Senate, that they have passed a law, passed a bill that increases that from 500 to 2,000, but that still is unfair as a law. The law needs to be changed so that everyone can vote. It's 2,000 people.
That's valid, and I appreciate that, and we will talk about that. But before we do, I want to currently now, where are we in the process? Has Edgemont started with the petitions? Have they not? What is Greenburgh? Obviously, we're here. We're organizing. You are, but where exactly are we in the process now?
Edgemont Incorporation Committee has been collecting signatures on their petition. Once they have the number required, which would be 20% of qualified voters in Edgemont, they can then file, but they have not yet filed the petition.
Note that they filed twice before,
Yes.
followed the process that Carol spoke about, but the supervisor turned down their petitions twice before. It went through all of the courts, and the court sustained the position of the supervisor after some courts saying that he was wrong. Finally, the court said that he was right. But the people who are concerned about this can't rely on Edgemont making mistakes again. The Reverend was talking about some action in the state legislature. It's interesting, if I can, that
sure.
the legislature finally realized that there was a need to change the village incorporation law. This law was passed back in 1897, 1 year after Plessy versus Ferguson, where the United States Supreme Court said separate but equal. And if you take a look at the statute that has lasted 100 and something years, right, 120 something years, it even allows landowners. They don't have to live in Edgemont or in the area to be incorporated. It allows landowners to sign the petition and maybe even vote, but doesn't let the people who are going to be affected by it outside of that particular little area to be able to vote. So this is clearly a statute that needs to be changed. Now, the legislature passed 2 bills. The Reverend has referred to one bill, which would raise the number of people who are needed to sign a petition. But number 2, it did pass a total reform bill. It changed the language about which we're talking, and it changed a few other things. It set up a commission to review the possibility, the need for a village. All of that is really, really going in the right direction. But there was a unique little, it said petition, it said this act shall not affect village incorporation petitions that have collected signatures prior to the effective date of the act. That means this exempts the Edgemont effort. So if the law does need to be changed, and we all agree that it does, and now the legislature does, why have they exempted Edgemont? Why have they exempted Greenburgh, which is the poster child of the need for this legislation? It's perplexing. What happened here?
What has been the official response? Has there been any from the state leaders?
We've met with the state leaders. We've met with the assemblywoman and as well as the senator, and they have given a positive review of the
Which
need.
one? Mary Jane Shimsky?
Mary Jane Shimsky
Yeah,
Andrea Stewart, cousin.
And
and
Andrea
Senator
Stewart.
Cousins.
Cousins, right.
As far as the need for something to take place, they agree with us. But in my opinion, I don't think changing the number of people that vote is what we need. We need the law to be changed so that every time anyone is affected by any change, they have a right to vote on it. And when you talk about separate but equal, is this what your definition of separate but equal is? And when we look at this law allowing someone to be exempt just because they are already in the process, I'm totally in disagreement with that. And I think if we look at the law that was written in 1897, then you can see that one or two words could be changed in that law that would give everybody that's going to be affected an opportunity to vote on such an impacted law that will affect so many people.
Thank you.
This
Go
really
ahead, I'm
represent voter suppression also. Okay, and I just want to say that we've had conversation with few people in Edgemont,
Uh-huh.
and I don't think the entire population in Edgemont is for this. It's a handful of people, and they also saw some of the harm and perils that we're talking about here. They really don't want it, and as we said previously, there's a handful of people that's pushing this. And one of the reach out that we intend to do in the next couple of weeks, we're going to try and reach out to the folks in Edgemont and try and have a meeting with them and educate them what disaster a few people are leading their town to. So it might not be good for all of them.
I think he's making a very valid point. When I was an assembly member, I had a lot of people from Edgemont reach out to me and say that they did not want to see this happen. They supported the legislation that I was trying to get passed, which included some of the things here. And I always say the new legislation's got some very good stuff in it. I just don't understand why Greenburgh is not included. And you know, some of the people in Edgemont who've looked at this actually recognize what you're saying. They like the services of the town of Greenburgh.
Yes.
They don't want to take a chance on somebody setting up a new village, and who knows how it's going to work, if it's going to work. And they don't want to give that up, and they don't want to possibly pay for things twice, because they have already invested money in the town of Greenburgh. How? Bonding has taken place, right? The town of Greenburgh has bonded. A new village is going to have to pick up the costs allocated to them for the bonding that was done for their benefit. So people are still going to be paying for things that from the town of Greenburgh, and now they're going to have to pay for new costs, maybe new bonding costs. Right. They're going to have a village hall. They're going to have all of the services that we're talking about here. So it's not unanimous. But as the Reverend said, in this day and age, so few people come out to vote that a few active, highly motivated people could pass this and could create a village to the detriment of everybody.
Yeah, well, we could have a separate discussion why people don't come out to vote, but what I've noticed just in general, talking to my neighbors, etc., is that just, again, you know, this mentality of just looking at headlines. You've really got to educate them. Being a former teacher, I understand what that means, and people don't understand that their power means something, that their participation means something, you know, and also, you know, you mentioned about the mess in Albany, that I believe you're not satisfied with the legislation in Albany, that last spot. You know, look, I'm going to mention it because this legislator, Amy Poland, she represents Scarsdale. Now, I don't know if she talks to all of the residents or just these leaders of the Edgemont Association. Tom, you're the pro-politically.
As a public official, it's very hard to gauge what the community really wants. And so when Amy Poland, who was a long-time, very good legislator,
right,
was given the Edgemont section of Greenburgh in the last redistricting. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that the leaders of this movement reached out to her and said, it's only right that we get to be the village on our own. And so they have an organized effort, etc. So she's responding to what she thinks her community wants. So she's been fighting very hard to stop this kind of legislation and to make sure that Edgemont gets to vote by itself and do its own thing. I think it's important for the others from Edgemont to reach out to her, let her understand this is not a unanimous view, that she should step back and not get involved in this discussion, and let the town of Greenburgh take the lead on what needs to be done for the whole town of Greenburgh.
And just one thing. Again, ladies and gentlemen, that's why we want you to write down the phone numbers and addresses of the various public officials, and you've got to email them. You don't even have to talk to them. You can email them, you can call them, whatever you're comfortable doing. But this is the way your voice is heard. I'm sorry, I didn't mean
that's
to
such a key
interrupt
point that Tom brings up, because the squeaky wheel gets the oil,
right?
And right now, with members of the coalition as well as myself, we have had numerous people to come to us from the village or town or part of Edgemont, let's say that, and say, we're behind you, stop this, because they are not aware of what's really going on or how it's going to affect them. So that's why we are moving from one segment of town to the other, having community meetings so that we can make them aware of the possibility and the likability of the different changes and different costs and the different problems that will occur if this incorporations happen. Now, under the present law, we have to understand also that there are other towns that have incorporated, and now they want to because it didn't work out so well. So we have to look at all of those aspects, but we cannot allow a few loud voices to be the only voice that's heard when it comes to these kind of laws in place. We need to mobilize and we need to activate voices that will make enough noise to cause the state assembly and the state senate to make a change in the law, not just the mechanics of the law, but make a change in the law.
Are you also going to reach out to the villages, residents in the villages, or not?
We had not planned to do that at this point.
So they're not primarily that effective.
Right, but it's critical that we reach into Edgemont.
Right.
The Edgemont Incorporation Committee has been in existence for several years. They are extremely well financed, and we are a grassroots coalition here. We don't have backing from very deep pockets. They have a beautiful website updated for 2023, but that website does not include updated 2023 financial information for the people of Edgemont to see. And their fiscal analysis was based on 2017-2018 data, and we all know that the world has changed significantly from an economic point of view since the pandemic and inflation that's hit us in the past few years. So the people in Edgemont really at this point don't understand what the financial impact will be for them. They don't know with any degree of certainty what their services will look like, because the people on the committee right now are not authorized to make any contracts or deals on behalf of the town because they are not the elected officials.
How about, like in certain, not everyone lives in a house. Some of them live in condos, etc. I mean, I know Westchester is expensive, but you must be having new people for the first time moving in also, who just, I assume that those are your targets also, right?
Well, not necessarily. The average, when Edgemont Incorporation gives out statistics, they base their statistics on $1 million home. So the people who are moving in now have millions of dollars that they're paying for their homes, and they might not be very worried if their taxes were to go up 5, 10, 15%. The older individuals who've been there for a long time are fully aware of the services that they get now, and a lot of them don't want to lose the current services that they receive.
But to add-
Reverend, I've got about a minute, 25 seconds.
But real quickly,
Go
to
ahead.
add to her answer, we cannot neglect the people that rent in private rental properties in Edgemont section, because part of their rent goes to the taxation of those properties. So they are included in a much less impacted way, but it's still an inconvenience or a problem for them.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Young people trying to make it
Yeah.
in here and then move up maybe to a couple of years to a house, whatever. That's why I brought this up. I want to thank the panel. You've done an excellent job. Thank you. And to our audience, this is only part one. We will be having at least another show, if not numerous shows, on this topic. So I want to thank you all for coming on the show. And all of our programs can be seen on our website online at any time for free at www.thedennisrudenshow.com, www.profilesandissues.com. Please send us your comments about our program to profile.issue@yahoo.com. This is Dennis Rudin saying so long for Profiles and Issues.